Hey everybody, how's it going? It's a Daily Shooter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot of great content coming up. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Glock 48. This channel is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Arms, North Las Vegas, Nevada. If you get a chance to stop in, let them know the Daily Shooter sent you. And the Firearms Policy Coalition. Make sure you check that link in the description box, become a member, and do your part to fight for our Second Amendment rights. Okay, so the Glock 48, this is a very interesting pistol, and one of the reasons I find it so interesting is because it's essentially a slimmed down Glock 19. So we are going to be doing a comparison between the 48 and the 19, but at the same time I want to make sure that I give this pistol its due and give it a full review on its own as an independent pistol in Glock's lineup. So let's go ahead and take this thing to the table, we'll take a closer look at it, we'll talk about some of the specs and what I thought about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with that comparison. Now, on the table here, you can see we have the Glock 48, and then we have my wife's Glock 19. Now, you can see that my wife's Glock 19 is modified, so we're not going to be doing the comparison in terms of the modifications versus the Glock 48. We're going to do it in terms of the latest model Glock 19 and the Glock 48. And I'll put some stuff here on the screen so you guys can kind of read along with me. But essentially what we have are the dimensional differences between the two, and then we'll talk about some of the physical differences other than dimensions here in just a second. But let's go ahead and start off with the dimensions because those matter. This again is kind of like a slimmed down version of the Glock 19, and one of the reasons is because of those dimensions. So as you guys see here, we'll put on the left the Glock 48 dimensions. On the right, you guys will see the Glock 19 dimensions. Now, there are a couple dimensions that I find very interesting. The first one is going to be the slide width. So if you take a look at the slide width for the Glock 48, you're looking at a slide width of 0.87 inches, but then on the Glock 19, it's going to be a total of 1 inch. So it's really not all that different, just a little bit over 1/10 of an inch difference between the Glock 48 and the Glock 19. Now, as we take a look at the overall width, and that's, including the grip, etc., you're looking at an overall width of 1.26 inches for the Glock 19 and 1.1 inches for the Glock 48. So you're talking about a little bit of extra width if you add the overall frame width as well. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting, and that's because the Glock 48 is just a hair shorter than the Glock 19, but the Glock 48's barrel is longer than the Glock 19. So when you're talking about overall length, essentially what we're looking at here for the 48 is 7.28 inches. The Glock 19 is going to be 7.36 inches. But in terms of barrel length, the Glock 43 has a 4.17 inch barrel, whereas the 19 has a 4.02 inch barrel. So over 1/10 of an inch difference in length when it comes to the 48 to the 19. Now, when you're talking about height is going to be identical between both pistols. That's kind of one of the more important things, if you ask me, because you're talking about two compact pistols, or at least what Glock calls their compact pistols. But when it comes to concealability, obviously your concealability, most of it at least, comes from the length, or excuse me, the height of the pistol itself. And the height of both of these comes in at 5.04 inches. Now, when it comes to two compact pistols, another very important factor is going to be weight, and there's two different weights that we need to look at here. The weight of the pistol with the magazine unloaded and the weight of the pistols with the magazines loaded. We have some capacity differences here that's going to lead to a little bit more weight and a little bit less weight for another, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But when you're talking about weight with an empty magazine for the 48, you're looking at 20.74 ounces, where with the Glock 19, basically what you're looking at with the magazine, no ammunition, you're looking at 23.63 ounces. Now, here is where the weight gets a little bit more extreme as far as the differences are concerned. With a loaded magazine, you're looking at the Glock 19 having 30.16 ounces of weight, 30.16, versus a loaded magazine with the 48, 25.12. So that's where you see a pretty big difference, over a quarter-pound difference with this one being loaded and this one being loaded. Okay, so now that we've talked about some of the dimensional differences, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other differences that I really think set these two pistols apart. Now, the first one may not mean anything to you. You might not be the type of person that likes to carry a light, laser, or anything else like that. but I like to have the option to do so. Even if I'm not going to carry a light or a laser, I still like the fact that the Glock 19 has an accessory rail that would allow me to do so if I chose. So we can use this accessory rail to put on lights, lasers, and any other accessory that we want. With the Glock 48, you can see that we do not have an accessory rail. You'd have to find something that actually clamped onto the trigger guard itself. Now, the reason for that is obviously because the Glock 48 is going to be a little bit thinner, and so even if it had an accessory rail, the same thing that would clamp onto a Glock 19 isn't going to be able to clamp onto the thin profile of the Glock 48, so it simply wouldn't work. Now, the Glock 48 is interesting because it is built on the Glock 43X frame. So essentially what we have here is a Glock 43X frame with a longer slide, and then we have this additional material right here that holds back the recoil spring, because the recoil spring is going to be the same distance as the Glock 43X as well. So there's a couple other physical differences that we could take a look at right there. Now, if you're wondering, yes, you can actually switch out the Glock 48 slide with the Glock 43X frame. So these two are completely interchangeable. I compare it a lot to a Glock 17 and a Glock 34. Glock 34 has a Glock 17 frame, but again, they've increased the slide on the 34 and put the same amount of material with the hole at the bottom that allows you to access the front sight post with a little removal tool. That's why that hole is there, if you guys don't know. That allows you to get out there with a little hex tool and take off that front sight post. So again, we have the ability to carry something like a light or a laser on the 19, whereas we do not on the 48. Now, another big difference is that the Glock 48 carries 10 rounds, whereas the Glock 19 carries 15 rounds. Each one comes with 2 magazines when you buy it new. Now, here's the difference, or at least the bigger part of that difference if you think about it in the same terms that I do. If I'm going to be carrying the Glock 48, which again kind of conceals very similarly to the Glock 19, and that's because of the overall length, if I'm carrying 2 magazines, I have a total of 20 rounds, but if I carry 2 magazines with the Glock 19, I have a total of 30 rounds. That would be the same as me carrying 3 magazines total for the Glock 48, so it just adds to the overall capability of the Glock 19. And again, what you're losing here is just a little bit of width. The Glock 19 is going to be a little bit wider and a little bit heavier. Now, if you've ever weighed ammunition, you're going to see that 9mm weighs almost an ounce per round, and that's where you get the weight difference between the two if you're carrying it, because with the 5 extra rounds, again, you're looking, at a significant weight increase between the 5 different rounds, 5 extra rounds you can carry in the 19 versus the 48. So again, that's where some of our weight differences come, and then again, we have the Glock 19, which is a little bit heavier. Now, another thing I like about the Glock 19 versus the Glock 48, and again, I'm not, saying that the Glock 48 is a bad pistol. We're going to review it independently in just a second here, but I like the fact that because it's a standard width on the Glock 19, I can add these additional features like this Alpha Shooting Sport slide right here, and with that Alpha Shooting Sport slide, it has an RMR cut on top, and with that RMR cut, it means that I have the ability to carry with an optic. And I personally, and I know this is not everybody, and there's a lot of old school dudes out there, but I personally shoot better with a red dot. It's one single aiming point. You don't have to worry about lining up the front and rear sights, and it does get rid of your necessary sight alignment and even the sight radius, because you have, again, one single aiming point. So if I wanted to carry with the red dot, I could do that on the 19 where I couldn't do that on the 48, and again, that's because of the profile. Now, if somebody does cut a 48 slide and allows you to carry something like an RMR, I'm not sure how they would do it, but if they were able to do it, obviously the RMR is going to be sitting wider, and that's going to increase the overall width of the pistol as you're carrying it as well, and that kind of defeats some of the purpose. Now, when it comes to comparing any two pistols, there's going to be some gives and some takes. It doesn't matter which two you look at. You're going to have to make the comparison on your own and figure out which fits best for you. When you're looking at the 48, you're talking about something that's a little bit slimmer and a little bit wider, but you do lose some of the capabilities that you would get from the Glock 19, the additional ammunition, the fact that you can run a red dot, and the fact that you have the accessory rail. So you have to figure out for yourself whether or not the slim profile and the lighter weight of the 48 is a worthy trade-off for the extra ammunition and the extra accessories that you can use with the 19. Again, this is all based on opinion. You guys may have a different opinion than I do. Some of it's based on pure stats, and with the stats, obviously you can't argue, but we all shoot things different. I've seen people that shoot the 19 fantastic, but then you put a SIG in their hand and they can't shoot it to save their life. So everybody has a different hand. Everybody shoots a gun differently. Everybody has a different thing that they like. So each one of these videos where you see these comparisons, if it's not based on an actual statistic or a detailed fact, then it is opinion. So you're going to hear some opinions in this video, obviously. But for me, I don't like the trade-off just being a little bit thinner and a little bit lighter, and then I lose what I lose in the Glock 19. So again, you're going to have to figure that one out for yourself. But now let's go ahead and review this thing on its own and talk about how well it worked out for me. Now, I actually sold an AR upper receiver so I could buy this 48 right here. I took the money and I went to Spartan Arms Las Vegas and I picked this thing up. Spartan Arms happens to be the channel's latest sponsor. So if you guys are ever in the North Las Vegas area, just below the Clark County Shooting Complex, make sure you stop in, let them know the Daily Shooter sent you, and they'll take care of you. Now, that day when I went to pick this thing up, I grabbed it and I went straight up to the shooting range. I'm not a big fan of shooting ranges, but I was kind of excited to try this thing out. And my first impressions were fantastic. I love the way that it feels. It feels really nice in my hand. I get a good solid grip out of it. Again, because it has the full-size frame, all of my fingers fit perfectly on it. And so I felt like it pointed good. It felt good. I mean, I was just, for my specific hands, this thing felt fantastic. So I went ahead, loaded it up, started shooting targets, and was instantly impressed. I love the way that this thing shoots. Because the slide is a little bit thinner, it feels like at least, there's a little bit less mass. So the recoil impulse actually feels pretty nice. You're talking about just a little bit longer in barrel length, which really isn't going to translate into anything in terms of velocity or energy. Maybe just a very fraction of the amount of energy increase that you would get versus the Glock 19, but it's nothing that would be noticeable at all. But the recoil impulse felt good, points good, feels good in the hand, and I shot really well with it. That's an important part of picking a concealed carry firearm, or even a firearm that you're going to open carry or something that you're going to use for home defense. The important reason for that is obviously you own everything that leaves this pistol. And so you want to make sure that you're hitting your target and nothing that's around your target. You know, if you want to pull this out in a defensive situation, you want to make sure that you're hitting exactly what you want to be hitting and nothing else. So the fact that I could shoot this so accurately was a big plus. Now, this one right here is a little bit different than the factory model. Well, it is factory, completely factory, but it's a little bit different than some of the other 48 models that you can find, because some of the other 48s will come with standard Glock sights. They're the standard polymer sight that has the U-notch on the back and then a standard front sight post with the white circle. This one right here actually came from the factory with night sights. They are very nice night sights. It has an orange tip on the front, and then we have 2 tritium vials in the back, blacked out back, and then we have, again, like I was saying, the orange front. Now, that could definitely aid in accuracy. Having a good set of sights that you can use is a big difference. I've seen people try and use the U-notch and they shoot okay, and then they'll switch it out. Maybe they'll get some Ameriglows, some Trijicon HD night sights, whatever the case is. They'll get new sights that work better for them, and their accuracy will increase just because of that, just because of the sights. Sights are an extremely important part of a pistol. So when I found out that they had one with the tritium night sights in it and everything, I went for that model. Obviously, it's a little bit more expensive than the standard you're going to find with the polymer sights, and I would switch out those polymer sights almost instantly just because they have a bad track record. I've never experienced anything with those sights. I've never had anything break on me, but other people have, and so that is why I always switch out my Glock sights. I think there's no such thing as Glock perfection until Glock gets rid of everything that has polymer sights on it, period. Then we're talking about a little bit more of Glock perfection. Now, when it came to ammunition reliability, this thing ran 100%, and that's a very important factor because there's some pistols out there that are even designed for concealed carry that will shoot full metal jackets just fine, but when you put hollow points in it, all of a sudden you start having problems, which is not okay. Chances are that's all I'm going to have in here are going to be hollow points in the future unless I take it to the range to practice with it. Other than that, it's going to have those hollow points. So I ran a ton of brands through this. We went with Fiocchi, Aguila, Tool Ammo Brass Max, Blazer Brass. I mean, you name it, I ran whatever full metal jacket that I had through it. Everything worked just fine. And then I went ahead and I switched to some hollow points. We did Federal Hydra Shock, different grain weights. We did Hornady Custom, Hornady Critical Duty, Hornady Critical Defense. And we even ran some off stuff here, which is like this TB ammunition. This is a 100 grain 9mm. It is a compressed copper, so it's like a frangible hollow point. I mean, this stuff's crazy. It's 100 grains, and this stuff is smoking fast, but obviously it's built a little bit different than a standard hollow point, so I wanted to test it out of this pistol, and it just ate it up no problem. I went through one box of 50 rounds, and I had no issues with it at all. So on top of just the standard reliability right out of the box, it ran through every different type of ammunition from 100 grain all the way up to 147 grain, no problem. So when it comes to the Glock 48, I really like it. I think it's a great pistol and a great option for somebody who's going to pick it up. If you picked it up, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. For me, would I buy it again over the Glock 19? I don't think so. If I could go back in time, I think I would just stick with my Glock 19 and not go with the 48. Nevertheless, it is another pistol that's in my inventory. It's a Glock, it's reliable, and if I grabbed this in any type of circumstance where I would need to defend myself, I know that this thing's going to work really well. So I don't think that you could go wrong with this option at all. And if you're somebody who's looking to get all three, like the 43, 43X, and 48, definitely it's going to be a nice addition. Now, this one right here does have the PVD finish, which is kind of like that buffed silver look to it, and there's some people that like that, some people that don't like that. But Glock recently released the option that is all black. So now on top of getting it with this PVD coating that's in this silver look, you can actually get black on black, and that's what I know a lot of people want. I thought this looked a little bit different, so I decided to go with the PVD finish, and as a matter of fact, the black on black wasn't even out yet when I got this thing. Either way, it's a great pistol. It's something worth checking out. If you have a range that allows you to rent pistols, and they have one, rent it, give it a shot, try it out, and see what you think. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.